This is another Matter 25 live stream tonight in English, and we are talking about a very interesting topic. My name is Johannes Fehr. I'm from the board of Matter 25, our German left party, part of DM25, our international movement, and we regularly on our YouTube channel talk about German politics, normally in German, tonight in our English episode, to take a bit of an inside and outside look on the interesting topic of the Germany's so-called left, that is pro-Israel. And we'll dive into questions like, what the fuck are you doing there? And what the fuck is this? We will ask why that happened, that part of the so-called left positioned themselves like this. And I'm really, really happy to have two guests tonight, which is Yuval Gal Cohen from the Jewish Israeli dissent in Leipzig, and Udi Raz from the Jewish Voice for Just Peace in the Middle East. Really happy to discuss this with both of you tonight, and would ask you to also introduce yourself very shortly to the audience. And the audience, you out there, if you have any questions during the episode, please ask us so we can dive into all the things that you also want to share also with us. If you have any comments, please put them in the chat so we can react. Welcome, Udi.
Thank you, Johannes. Well, according with relation to the general situation, I'm doing as well as things can be at the moment. I'm really excited to talk with you and with Yuval today, and I'm grateful that you hold the space in a situation, in a living reality where democratic spheres are shrinking. So it's so precious that we got the opportunity to connect and to discuss things publicly within the belly of the beast here in Germany.
Thank you, Udi, and also welcome, Yuval. You're in Leipzig, correct?
I am in Leipzig at the moment, at my home. Also, very much sharing Udi's feelings, especially in the past 2 weeks. Just kind of, you're doing as much as well as you can, kind of. Yeah, excited to be here. Excited to talk about this phenomenon. It's called anti-Deutsch.
And maybe you can, for the start, I think it would be good for especially those that maybe watch from the international level and have a lot of questions regarding the title. If you could share a bit your personal stories, both of you, how you arrived here and how you actually encountered this so-called part of the left in Germany that is surprisingly pro-Israel. Yuval, you want to go on?
Yeah, I can go. I can go first. Well, I'm going to start by saying that I'm an anti-Zionist Israeli Jew, co-founded Yid, Jüdisch-Israelische Dissent, because we kind of realized that meeting this concept of anti-Deutsch and finding it very weird, regardless whether you're on the spectrum of being radically anti-Zionist or just coming out of just being a random Tel Avivian that is moving to Germany. This is something that is a collective experience of like, what the fuck? And I've been activist most of my life. As a teenager, growing up, I didn't go to the military, refused to go to the military. So it's important to me to bring this kind of like this background. Moving to Germany 5 years ago, moving to Leipzig, kind of have to fight the fight here as well. And surprisingly realizing that the people who were supposed to kind of be my allies are not. And we actually don't share the same values of equality and human rights for all, and even just being anti-war in this moment, right? And my first interaction with anti-Ds was actually not in Leipzig. It was before I even moved to Leipzig and realized what a hive I've moved into. I took part in the Hambacha forest. There's the very successful struggle against the deforestation of the forest. And I remember sitting with this one person that I met there, and we've been talking and sharing our backgrounds, where we come from. And of course, I'm me, so I tell them my story and my view. And of course, as a leftist activist, and back then also within Israeli society, like I am not the same person that I was 5 years ago, but with the words that I had, even back then, with the words that I had, talking about the occupation, talking about the injustices that exist where I come from, he looked at me after and he said, you know, if you say that too loud, people will call you anti-Semitic. And that was the first time that I'm like, wait, what? It's first of all, I thought it was, well, it is a real global agreement. Palestine is eventually a global agreement of a struggle that is right, a struggle that is needed. An old struggle didn't start yesterday, right? Did not start on the 7th of October. Obviously, this was a conversation topic before, and this was something that people fought for before. But that was just this welcome to the German sphere of talking about things. So that was my first interaction of like, oh, maybe the people who fight my fight are actually not, they either don't get it or they don't want to get it. And what started as feeling just like quite discomfort, yeah, and like and moving to Leipzig here, really experiencing, not only witnessing the power that anti-Deutsch have culturally in the city, and how it's systematically being used to silence Palestinians, or even more, like I think in the last few years, Leipzig has been very much more vocal about Palestine, thanks to Handala, the Palestinian group here, and thanks to people who actually like do the work and bring it to the front. But it's before that, it's almost people ignored the fact that they had Palestinians in their town, like that we live among Palestinian refugees, and yeah. So I'm going to, it's just been the natural path of standing with Palestinians wherever they are, because obviously it's not just moving out of Israeli of 48. It's not only to not actively participate in the occupation, but yeah, it's seeing the positions of power here in the system around me here, and also working against them or with them in a way. So this kind of what emerged, what made us starting Yid, because we, unlike Jüdische Stimme, they are doing an amazing job. We are a group of Israelis that we, for the record, each and every one of us have very complicated relationship with this term also. And we're in a constant debate with ourselves on this name for that as identity. But we are all a group of Israelis that were activists against the occupation, apartheid, and now, of course, against the genocide. We all come from that place of being anti-Zionist activists, coming to Germany and realizing that we're not only silenced back where we come from, but we are silenced here. And with the layer of weaponizing anti-Semitism, suddenly we're not only Israelis, we're Israelis were Jewish because we see other people talking on our behalf, as if they don't want to acknowledge at all the reality on the ground. And so, we put it to ourselves as a promise to be in solidarity with Palestinians, bringing what it's like to be radical left within Israeli society. How has it been? What it's really like in the so-called only democracy in the Middle East that they claim that they support. We bring our experiences, that we actually come from a place that is inherently fascist and inherently racist, and what it means to actually stand against it and fight it. And I'm going to close my segment now and give it to Udi.
Yuval, thank you.
Over to you, Udi.
Thank you, Johannes. It's so interesting to listen to Yuval, because the experiences that Yuval shares and Yuval brings in voices of other self-identifying Jews into this conversation resonate also with my own experience. Living as a Jewish, self-identifying Jew in Germany means something very specific, and it's different in its essence than the experience of living as a self-identifying Jew in the context of Palestine, on the land of Palestine, governed by the so-called State of Israel. In the context of Palestine, Jewish self-identification means belonging to the hegemonic, the ruling race, let's say, or a social group. While in the context of Germany, it means belonging to a subcategory of whiteness, in best case, and in the same time that you are being included, your experience as a self-identifying Jew is completely neglected by those who wish to make policy for you, so to say. But there is something that is quite overlapping in the fact that you find within the so-called left here in Germany individuals who, nevertheless, 17 months into an ongoing genocide, still support the genocidal state of Israel. And you will find also the same phenomenon in the context of Palestine, where self-identifying Jew would still wave the Israeli flag and go on the street, calling for the replacement of war criminal Netanyahu and with other war criminals into power. So, you know, the governing discourse does not concern Palestinians in either cases. And it also not concerns really the question of what does it mean to be Jew in a post-World War II world. Because if we think about the legacies that we inherited from our sisters, brothers, siblings who were murdered during the Second World War, we would have said that legacies like the German Basic Law, like democracy, like human rights, like international law, we have to acknowledge that all those legacies were written, among others, also with the blood of more than 6 million European and North African Jews. And it's quite telling that those, specifically here in Germany, who consider themselves left, are so willing to give up all those legacies, making it clear that their policy making is really not informed by the atrocities their parents or grandparents or great-grandparents have committed. They inform the policies, or what informs their policies are their own supremacists' desire, or their own wish to once again feel superior in relation to others. And what allows them to do so is the ideology of Zionism. We can delve more into this topic perhaps as we go during the conversation, but you asked specifically about experiences that I had with anti-Germans, let's say. And, you know, when if we believe German politicians, then we should assume that Neukölln should be a no-go area for Jews, for example. I feel that Neukölln, for me, in Berlin, is one of the safest places at the moment, precisely as a marginalized group, as a member of a marginalized group. But there are some places in Neukölln that are indeed no-go areas for Jews. And one of them is the so-called Beisel. Beisel is a bar of anti-Germans. I will give you just one example. In 2023, in September 2023, 1 month before the beginning of the genocide, together with other self-identifying Jews, as they spoke about themselves publicly in the room, we attended an event that called itself Mythos Israel 1948. In this event, the speakers insisted that the Nakba is nothing else but a collection of myths, and they basically laid open the interpretation of why the Nakba should be considered as a myth at best, or ignored altogether. And I can recall as one of the persons who self-identifies Jew stood up in protest again against this framing of the Nakba as a myth, and expressed their concern that this is not something that one should tolerate, let alone give room for this. He was then pushed out with violence from the room, and at least one individual who was present in the room was shouting at this person, "Du arme Jude," you poor Jew. You know, so this is really the atmosphere that is characteristic to Beisel. This person that was took out was have left the room with a fracture in the rib, and was then, if I remember correctly, also received Strafanzeige. What is Strafanzeige in English? He was charged with criminal
fine.
A fine, yeah. So this is the experience of self-identifying Jews in specific places in Neukölln. Beisel is, of course, only one minor example, let's say, but quite telling, quite symptomatic to how this discourse in general works. On the one hand, those places claim to be places where Jews should feel most comfortable, but rarely the Jews are actually asked what are our needs, what we wish for ourselves, how we perceive the world in general. This discourse is designed for anti-Semites, let's say, to feel good about themselves without the necessity to actually engage with living experiences of self-identifying Jews.
Thank you, Udi, also for sharing. I think to the ones listening, as someone that is actually German and grew up in the German countryside, maybe I can also share quickly that one of the problems, of course, here is that we learn a lot about the Holocaust in school, and we should, and it's something really important for us to reflect on. But unfortunately, the Nakba is, for example, a term that I only learned about when I was long out of school, what that event actually was. And the same actually also, we learn very, very little about the other genocides that the Germany perpetrated in the past. And I think those are all telling signs for a lack of understanding of the wider history and the wider lessons to be learned from history and from all the atrocities from the past. I would propose that also you mentioned already the term anti-Des and anti-Germans. I think it's a bit confusing for a lot of people, although that is kind of like the historic term on how that group is called. So I would propose that we call them the ultra-Germans. I think it's much more telling because there's nowadays so much in line. They actually also, funny coincidence, the first comment in this chat today was Antifa means solidarity with Israel. So that's exactly one of those people that waved the Antifa flag together with the Israel flag in German demonstrations. And of course, they couldn't be more wrong. And that is not what I think and what many think is Antifa, I think. So, and today's, of course, they are very much in line with what the German state is actually doing, and a big part of the German society, unfortunately, also is supporting. Maybe, yeah, you can also share a bit on how you see that connection, I think, because it's really important between the state and that so-called self-proclaimed left. That would be, I think, interesting to dive in a bit more. Yuval?
Yeah, I think it's exactly what you said. It's true that it's considered the anti-Germans, because actually what we are saying, that actually they're not anti-German at all. Actually, when we see those demonstrations of gegen jeden Antisemitismus, they're not protesting against anything. They're not really protesting against anyone or against any idea. They're protesting for the state. Like, Germany is already supporting Israel with billions. And yet you still hear people raising with like the whole aesthetic of being a radical thinker, calling for more weapons. So it's first this idea, as I said, of like, you would think that leftists would be anti-war as the base of even as the base of, I don't know, being critically thinking of our political situation, whether it's global or local. Like, would you be in the 60s protesting for the Vietnam War? Like, you haven't seen Fehr? But the second point that I wanted to make, especially with the Antifa, and because of my background, I might be biased with bringing experiences of the so-called radical left, which is 10 people. I'm not pretending there is any, but the Antifa flag in Israel is in support of Palestine. So it just comes to show how disconnected, exactly what you said before, of what Udi said before. I'm not even like engaging with real experiences of people. It's such deep level of disconnection from the people on the ground, the people that they're so-called, supposed to like say that they are in solidarity with. Like they hold the Antifa flag in one hand and the Israeli flag in one hand, while my friend back in Israel, while holding the Antifa flag, is getting beaten up either by cops or either by settlers. So it's really amazing to see the disconnection, just to show that, well, I can go deeper on that actually later, of that is a form of dehumanization, like, and anti-Semitism, basically. They don't see us as humans. They don't really see us as real people with thoughts and etc. So I just wanted to add this couple of
Yuval, I want to, sorry for interrupting. Yuval, I wanted to add to what you said. Also, it's interesting that in the German case, specifically in the case of Germany, when we talk about the Jewish population in Germany after 1945, after the end of the Second World War, the end of the Jewish Holocaust and many other Holocausts who took place during the same time by Nazis, we see that the Jewish population was and remain really a tiny, small social group within the overall millions of dozens of millions of population of Germany in general. So when we talk nowadays about Jews in Germany, we talk about a very optimistic number of 250,000 self-identifying Jews in Germany. So German politicians or policymakers in Germany, and also it includes also ultra-Deutsche or anti-Deutsche, Zionist Germans, they have a challenge of framing their or informing themselves really in a climate where Jews rarely exist. So it would have taken from them an active approach to do a research, basically, to reach out to those who self-identifying as Jews, who move through this anti-Semitic world as Jewish individuals in order to inform their decision-making process. But it's perhaps then not quite surprising that they choose not to do so. The system has been designed by Aryans for Aryans, and everybody who is not Aryan, their experience is remain marginalized within this system of policy making. I'll give you just one example. Within the Bundestag, for example, how many self-identifying Jews are sitting right now as we speak in the Bundestag? Do you have an idea?
To be honest, I haven't.
So the thing is that none of them self-identify as Jew, and this is the case not only in the current legislation period, but also in the former one under Olaf Scholz, and the former one with Angela Merkel, and the Angela Merkel ruling before that. So we see more than a decade as anti-Semitism becomes a phenomenon that allegedly concerns those in power so deeply. And policy making around anti-Semitism is increasing, actually also while violating the very basic German law. It's quite telling the Jews are not really part of this discussion. And whenever we do raise a voice, whenever we speak up, those who are in power will point at us, call us anti-Semites, self-hating Jews, and subject us to boycott, divestment, sanctions, state repression, police brutality, and so on and so on.
Thank you. Yeah, that is actually also something that I didn't know. So thanks for sharing some really telling facts also in our stream. I want to ask you one question, but that someone that is probably, I don't know what the identity of the person in the chat is, of course. His name is Anti, and he actually is asking you, Udi, if you could wear a kippah in Neukölln, since you have been going around there. So I wanted to forward that question to you.
Thank you, Johannes, for the question. Thank you for asking the question that I think that perhaps also other people ask themselves about how I move around with a kippah. I wear the kippah everywhere I go, also in Neukölln. The scary thing for me is to walk with this kippah rather in Charlottenburg and in places that are marked as no-go areas for Jews, basically.
Thank you for clarifying that. Okay, I think, Yuval, did you want to add something?
Because I wanted to say something about you mentioned the education system and what we are learning. And I think this is a massive part of it. I mean, we're going into that a bit before we even read the history of the Ultradeutsche, but I think especially the education system is a massive part of it, because they do teach a lot about the Holocaust, but they wouldn't teach about the system that allowed the Holocaust to happen. And what is resulting of that is that fixation on one group of victims, and then nie wieder ist jetzt is actually dog whistle to only specifically nie wieder for Juden, like only for Jews. Kind of forgetting the fact that first of all, like throughout history and the Holocaust, the survival of Jews, despite the Holocaust and despite what is happening, always happened in solidarity with other marginalized people, which the Ultradeutsch and the political sphere and how anti-Semitism is being taught is not only lacking lacking real facts and real critical thinking about a system, about like a system that a societal system and political system that allowed the Holocaust to happen. What happened is this fixation of Jews, of philo-Semitism, as they say, and the problem of viewing anti-Semitism as something special, not something that is part of as a form of racism, and not actively like fighting anti-Semitism as a form of racism, which then unite the struggle with other struggles against other forms of racism. It just aligns Jews more. It just puts us in a box more. And if there's one thing that I always try to push and to say to ultra-Deutsch, that actually, as anti-Jewish, oh my God, anti-Zionist Jews, anti-Zionist Jews who either experience anti-Jewish racism, where we are here in Germany, we know what it's like to grow up with a narrative that is being told to us that we have to unlearn. We know what it means to come from generational trauma and the other way around, right? I really believe that we know and we understand how ultra-Deutschism work. We know them much more than they know themselves. Because of course we are still in this process, right? It's always a process of shedding the Zionism and shedding the narratives that has been taught to us and been implied to us, especially through the educational system and everywhere we go, teaching us what is solidarity, what is unity, and finding out that actually it's just for one people and not for all people. We know what it's like to disagree with our grandpa. And that's the sad part of it. That you would imagine that we would find solidarity and we would find allies based on those processes. Like nobody here in Germany, those ultra-Deutsch are born with an Antifa flag in their hand. Like they could just as easily find themselves growing up to be one of those people walking in an AfD demonstration, right? So how come the work, let's say, stops when it comes to Palestine? Where do you put your comfort above justice and the work that needs to be done for justice? And that's just my... Yeah, they teach us about the Holocaust, but they don't teach us about the resistance to the Holocaust. They don't teach us about the different collaborations that have done in the name of resisting human slaughter and a genocide. And instead of having the opportunity to really actively resist, do what their grandpa could not have done, they choose to stay in that lane, in this false lane, very harmful lane. And what I wish is also for them or for people in general to take from this episode and from our conversation is that all of us are always in process of understanding our surrounding and understanding ourselves with our political surrounding and where is our place. And if we find ourselves talking about anti-Semitism, but there's no Jews around, then maybe we're not having the right conversation. And now we can move.
Those were almost closing words already. No, they didn't, but it was a good, summary. That's what I wanted to express with that.
I would like to go with this intention,
Yes.
of taking something out of this conversation. We're not just talking shit about you. We want about people. We want them to actively think about what we're saying. So I invite them to put their ego aside for a second, and then we can continue.
Yes, thank you. I actually have never experienced such an active chat with just a few people that seem to be identifying as Antifa and pro-Israel, having a very active discussion. I just want to clarify one thing, just because we are against, speaking out against genocide in one part of the world is not meaning that we support the regime in Iran or the regime in Turkey, because that's something that is thrown around in the chat. Just wanted to clarify that without us, diving further into this, because I don't think there's need. If there's anyone that has interesting questions, since we're going into the second half of our conversation, please put them into the chat and we will answer them. Yes,
Johannes,
over to
sorry,
you.
just like shortly, maybe it's a good opportunity to ask the anti-ultra chair that are with us in the chat. Maybe they, for the second part, they could still invite their other anti-German friends. I think it's so essentially important that they finally get the opportunity to listen to two self-identifying Jews who live in contemporary Germany.
Yeah, I think that's a good invitation. Also, a lot of comments help, of course, the stream to be spread. So thank you also in that regard. Maybe we can talk a bit on how that, I think, which is a big problem that the German left. I think we need to also maybe talk about that part of the German left that is just silent, because there's also that part that just don't want to touch this complicated topic, and what it actually means, for the German left being so isolated in that regard from the international left, which has a much more clear position, and which makes the German left very small. And that is something that needs to change, because especially in this country, with our history, we actually need a very strong left, especially with the current developments that we're seeing all around us. Can
I actually correct this one thing? I have a thing with that, especially in our country. In every country, in every state, there should be a strong left, because it's not, I refuse to believe that supporting genocide is in somebody's DNA. So I really think that, yes, in Germany and with our German context, of course, it's incredibly important for us to be loud, but it's really for every state. It's really for every country, because every country and every state and every nation has the potential to be, taking into account geopolitics and all this stuff. But I think everybody has the potential to be fascist. Everybody also has the potential to be anti-fascist. So just this, doing this exception of Germany, because he's in every place, because Germany is part of the world, and that, well, we're going to talk about it later, but the part of the German left versus the global left, and how we have those demonstrations against the international left wrong, so I just wanted to give into context this concept of, especially in Germany, what do we mean by that? That's all.
Yes, absolutely. I think what I meant, maybe to put a bit of nuance to the thought, is that in a country where fascism has been in power for a very long time. But of course, you're absolutely right, and thank you for adding that. One of the questions that we actually prepared for the conversation is, how do we distinguish between fighting anti-Semitism and upholding Zionist ideology? I think it's probably something that you already have answered in your statements here and there, but maybe we can just give people some, your opinion and a bit of some guiding on how to do this and be in solidarity with every marginalized or suppressed group.
Johannes, if that's okay for you and for you, Yuval, I'm happy to at least offer one possible answer to this very urgent question. And I think perhaps it would make most sense to answer this question by considering what is anti-Semitism, or even more precisely, what is anti-Semitism according to those who are in power here in Germany. In 2017, the German government adopted what we by now know is an anti-Semitic definition of anti-Semitism, which was introduced 1 year earlier in 2016 under the so-called IHRA definition of anti-Semitism. IHRA stands for International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance, and this is an intergovernmental coalition of 99% predominantly countries with predominantly Christian population. There is one exception in this coalition, and this is the so-called the Jewish state, the state of Israel, which is also part of this coalition. So you have a room full with Christians and one Jew. In Germany, they call this phenomenon diversity. So in this very diverse room, they all sit together in 2016 and introduce a definition of anti-Semitism. According to this definition, anti-Semitism, I'm giving here a citation from the website of the IHRA. You can look for it, IHRA, anti-Semitism. It's written, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. Rhetorical and physical manifestations of anti-Semitism are directed toward Jewish or non-Jewish individuals and or their property, toward Jewish community institutions and religious facilities. If you feel confused, I don't feel surprised, because also those who framed or defined those definition of anti-Semitism found it so confusing that they found it necessary to attach a list of 11 examples of what this definition could mean, what anti-Semitism could mean. But, I just want to draw your attention to the very simple fact that if we look already at the first sentence of the definition of anti-Semitism, which goes like, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews, we already noticed that there is something quite tricky in this formulation, because may, as we know, implies a possibility. So the second part of the sentence already implies an example. So if we leave this example outside of the sentence, we live with the following definition of anti-Semitism. According to the IHRA, anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews. Now, sisters, if Yuval and myself are sitting in front of you and we tell you that we self-identify as Jews, you have a certain perception of Jews. Is this anti-Semitic? Let's leave this question open for now. Then we realize that we really need to delve into the specific context of each case. I understand anti-Semitism very much the same way as Yuval defined it before. Anti-Semitism is racism towards Jews. There was a moment in history which is still sustained under Zionist knowledge production, according to which Judaism is a signifier of an ethnic social group or racial social group. This is a phenomenon that you see within Nazi knowledge production and contemporary Zionist knowledge production, both in Palestine, within the framework of the State of Israel, in Germany, in the US, and in many other Zionist countries. So we have a really problem here with the definition of anti-Semitism that has been institutionalized by state institutions here in Germany, that makes anti-Semitism into a phenomenon that is simply too complicated. And they like to say, So they would rather not even start dealing with this. The only institution that is in charge of defining what is anti-Semitism or not is the state of Israel from the perspective of those who are in power here in Germany. Because if you look at the examples also of the what anti-Semitism could mean within the framework of the IHRA, you'll see that 7 out of the 11 examples are directed directly to the state of Israel as examples of what anti-Semitism could mean. So only 4 of those examples address living experiences of Jews as Jews. So according to this IHRA definition of anti-Semitism, in order to define or to decide whether something could be classified as anti-Semitic, falls into the hand of the state of Israel. And you see that all those state institutions here that are being designed allegedly to protect Jewish life in Germany have very close ties, very close connection with Israeli right extremist policymakers and Israeli state institutions, among others with individuals who are committing crimes against humanity right now in Gaza. So this is what I wanted to say about this problematic of how anti-Semitism has been utilized, has been institutionalized in policymaking in today's Germany, and how this anti-Semitic definition of anti-Semitism affects the living realities also of Jews here in Germany. According to this definition, everybody who speaks up for democracy, for human rights and international law must be understood as an anti-Semite, which, to say it in a rather ironic way, I hope that everybody who listens to this talk today would be anti-Semitic, but only according to the IHRA definition of anti-Semitism.
Thank you, Udi. I hope that, that people could follow that very detailed explanation. I think it's important to dive into the details because I think, as you mentioned, these definitions are used a lot to, justify repression here in this state, especially, of course, against Arabs and Palestinians, but also Jewish people, German people, lots of people that work against the support of the German state for the genocide in Palestine. There was someone asking in the chat, what do people mean by the topic is complicated? Does someone of you want to try and answer or had experience with that?
I can answer. The topic is in the topic of Palestine, of Israel-Palestine, right? Or anti-Deutsch, which is complicated.
No, the Israel-Palestine. Yes, take a position.
Because I would argue that the concept of anti-Deutsch is more complicated and more layered than actually Israel-Palestine. The idea that it's complicated is a manufactured idea. If you really look at what is happening, what has happened, under if you put some kind of standard to your values of displacing people and not letting them go back to their home, can we agree this is unacceptable no matter what? Taking over lands, erasing cultures, and in the last 18 months as well, literally killing more than 60 women on a daily basis on average. Can we agree that this is not very complicated, that this is unacceptable from the beginning, no matter what excuse or reason will be brought? So once you recognize that and you don't compromise, it's really that simple. Because a lot of the time, I mean, it's very on purpose that people will see it as very complicated because as Jews, we come with a lot of baggage. We have a lot of baggage, and we see that baggage literally crushing not only us, but other people. And the only reason it feels complicated is because we've been told that it's complicated. In reality, it's a very textbook case of settler colonialism. It's very 101 generational trauma being weaponized and being abused by a third bigger power. It's really a text definition of taking of capitalizing over somebody else's suffering, I would even say, because in the end of the day, we say mif'al hatzionut, it's a factory of Zionism in Hebrew. It's a Zionism factory, and a factory means that to benefit financially from doing work, the Zionist work, which is taking over land, taking over the demographic, and no matter what somebody else is going through, can we agree that it is not okay to project it and to put it on somebody else? And I'm very much purposely talking with these kind of wordings of almost talking to a child, because it's really as simple as this. No matter under what circumstances, 750,000 people should have not been expelled. So if we look from, remember, this happened, and it's not only if they took this agreement or not took this agreement or this or that. In the end of the day, regardless also what agreements are being discussed, as we speak right now, settlers are going over doing another pogrom somewhere in the West Bank, and the bombardment of Gaza is resumed, and so it's the use of it's so complicated is literally an excuse an excuse to not look at reality as it is now. Because can we agree that killing people is wrong and killing children is wrong? And that's what I mean also by values and principles of the left. Because based on my personal experience, I found myself in those different struggles where I was, the different struggles of within Israeli society, that I just proves why the concept of ethno-state, of Jewish state, just don't work, and would never work. It comes from following those values of, oh yeah, stealing somebody's home is wrong, demolishing somebody's home is wrong, stealing sheeps, killing children is wrong. And that leads me to understand the reality in which I'm living in. And if we drop that it's complicated and we just look at the reality, and also together with the sentence, it's complicated, it's complicated on both sides, right? It's the both sides that a lot of the time comes with it's complicated. I think once we drop the idea of both sides, and if we actually then look on both sides, then we see that it's very simple, because you would not put it on the same level. That's yeah.
Yuval, listening to you and hearing this, keeping in mind this, it's not complicated sentence that we hear around us. Thank you, first of all, for addressing it so accurately. I can offer maybe a way to summarize it very briefly, because when I listen to you, I hear from you that what is actually complicated is to justify a Nakba, is to justify ethnic cleansing, it's to justify an apartheid regime, it's to justify a genocide. And what is not complicated, on the other hand, is the German Basic Law, are the legacies of human rights, and is international law. All those legacies that, once again, were written, among others, also with the blood of more than 6 million European and North African Jews.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for summarizing it again and putting it, to the point. Thank you both for sharing so much your views. As we are coming to the end of the stream tonight, do you have anything else that you wanted to mention, that you wanted to share? Do you have a message maybe also for the people that still feel it's complicated, that self-identify as leftist in Germany but are not speaking out? I would be interested to, for you to share anything else, and anything else that you, of course, want to still leave with the audience.
I
Udi,
am
yes.
happy to go first, what crosses my mind is this very powerful experiences of going on the streets here in Berlin, but also in other places in Germany. I've seen that. We go on the street year by year, week by week, month by month, year by year, doing the bare minimum one can do, show solidarity with our siblings who are being subjected to an ongoing genocide since more than 17 months. And you see with you on the street, as you go on the street, the most diverse group of people you can ever imagine. And this is really a gift that Gaza gave us. Gaza taught us to finally see how we are all connected, how different struggles are connected to each other and entangled with each other. And when we call for the liberation of Palestine from Zionism, we also call for the liberation of Judaism from Zionism. And we call for, and we see and we show solidarity also with our siblings in Congo and in Sudan and in Kashmir and in Papua and in Myanmar and in Mexico and in so many other places around the world, places that are affected by a system that is based on racism, is based on exploitive capitalism and climate injustice, all those phenomena that are very much entangled with each other. So when we say that the liberation of Palestine from Zionism means also the liberation of Judaism from Zionism, we say we include in this context also a long list of other struggles that are entangled with with Palestine. Palestine becomes a symptom of a deeply sick ruling system that we are finally address as such.
Thank you, Udi. Yuval, do you want to add something?
Yeah. Great words. Great words. I think you really touched also on the one thing. I wish we could go even more deeper into the history of the anti-Deutsch, because it's a generational thing, and maybe we can do even another episode, because I think it is something that is the Palestine is really uncovering layers, I feel, of how societies are built and manufactured, and in the psyche, in the mental, in the emotional also. Why do I feel emotion to this group of people but not to this group of people? How was it shaped? So I find this topic and these processes of where humans can find themselves really fascinating. I wanted to add to your point of the real diversity that you feel, because one of the things that a lot of the time the Germans would find themselves telling me, of course, calling me a couple and self-hating Jew and all of those things. But if they are the nicer ones, they would say, oh, you will never know coexistence in this, that, supporting this. Or you would never find peace and and or you know, because like go to point 1, 2, 3 and see how they treat you there. And exactly through marching down the streets and showing up and really co-resisting, like they don't understand. I found my coexistence. I exist through the co-resistance on the street. It sounds poetic. I didn't make that up, but I found my coexistence as you know, as wild or big or coexistence, also a word that has been so washed, which I completely understand why it's also like, yeah, not a word that is almost relevant anymore. But my place as the Jewish woman that I am, experience what I've experienced as the Jewish woman that I am, led me to march down the street with my Palestinian brothers and sisters. And this is where I feel comfortable. And this is my, like, I found this connection, and it's through solidarity. You're the ones that actually did not find that and dove into nationalism, fake nationalism as well, because it's not like they can show up their own nationalism, right? Like German flag has a very specific connotation, but if I can wave the Israeli flag but do the same things, nobody would notice that I'm a bigot, actually. So if there's one thing that I would like to say is that they're wrong. And only the way of solidarity and doing internal work, that trust that we do, only then we can like really move forward and make a revolution, which I really think all of us want, like a better, just world. So I'm becoming hippie right now, but like that's the thing. I'm on the street. Where are you at? That's it.
Yes, thank you. If revolution is one of the last words, that has been a good stream. The people in the comments already second you, Yuval, that we should do another episode to really have time to go into the history, which I think we didn't thrive so much tonight. I really also look forward to that. People also please, comment afterwards under the video what other questions you might have felt that we left out, that we should answer in that second episode. Please subscribe to the channel. Thank you, Yuval and Udi, for joining tonight. I learned so much from you. I think, do you agree that we will do this? We'll do another episode? Are you up for it?
Definitely. Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you,
100%. Thank you for this opportunity.
Great. So we will be back soon. Also, if you want to support our work in Matter 25, please go to matter25.de and leave us a small donation or join as a member. There's also an English version of the website. Yes, thank you, Yuval. Thank you, Udi. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time.